MichaelMurphySports.ie.
Welcome back. I'm joined in studio by Aidan Campbell, Marketing Officer with Finn Harps, and Ian Harkin, the Chairman of the club. And of course, the countdown continues to the long-awaited Donegal Community Stadium and its involvement in Stranorlar, just a stone's throw away from the present ground. A lot happening behind the scenes, and hopefully in the not-too-distant future, Finn Harps will be playing at that new stadium. We're going to be discussing more about that and fundraising and a lot of the things going on behind the scenes very shortly. But firstly, I'm going to begin with Aidan. And last night, Aidan Harps getting a point which on the surface of things looked a good result against Bohemians, 2-2. Second time this season they've got a draw. But I suppose disappointment as well, because it could have been a victory as Harps let in a late goal, and then UCD securing victory. So Harps are back at the bottom of the table. The drama continues.
Yeah, it does, Chris. I suppose, as you say, going up to one of the biggest teams in the country, getting a draw normally would be seen as a good night's work. We're at the business end now, and points are precious. UCD have done, they've had a good season and surprised a lot of people, but they've got good young players and they've put it up to us. But I suppose if you go back to the start of the season, the end of last season, when we had that fantastic night when we secured our Premier status against Longford, and it was those fantastic scenes across the pitch with children and everybody else celebrating. And I think a lot of people took that team to their hearts, and losing so many players in the pre-season, I think we lost 12 players, and you always know when you've got good players because everybody else wants them. And trying to put a squad together, the market was intensely difficult leading up to this season. So there was always a danger that this season's team would be compared with that team. And when we did put a squad together, you're obviously taking in players that you know about, that you think can do the job. But you don't know until you actually start, and it is very difficult to source a player, or it's become increasingly difficult, who can compete at this level. Being one of the two part-time clubs in this division, because I think the UCD guys train as much as professional clubs, it's very difficult. And I think Conor Hoey, the Drogheda chairman, has come out and just articulated really well what the challenges are. So we've again coming down to the wire. That team last year, incidentally, I think they ended up with 44 points, which is extraordinary that it went to the last game. It was a really competitive season. But we always knew it was going to go to the wire. And this game next week, we always knew it was going to be a cup final. Yeah. So really what we need to do is get out there and get that support behind us this week, and just really emphasise the importance of supporters. They have just been amazing through what has been a really, really tough season. We haven't given them a lot to cheer about, but they can make the difference next Friday.
And let's not forget, last season a lot of people would have felt it was arguably Harps' best team in 20 years.
Yeah.
Played really well, ended up 8th in the table. So it was going to be difficult to get even 8th this season. And from early on, some people would have said, well, getting into a playoff was probably the best that could be expected. We're still in a situation now that at least going into the last home game, there's something to play for. And just to recap on the situation, UCD have a game in hand, and that's on Monday night. There's going to be a lot of people looking at that. Now, from a Harps point of view, obviously they'll be hoping UCD slip up. But irrespective of what happens there, the fact of the matter is next Friday at Finn Park, Harps have to really beat UCD.
I think so. And you know what? We won't sit here and make excuses. UCD are a good team. They've got, I think the management team there has done a great job. But we know we've got players in our squad who've got the experience and ability to go out and win that game. And they're good enough to do it. I do think it will help a lot if we can, get a big crowd at Finn Park, get people really behind them. And there's no reason why they can't go do the job. It's a big week for us. We're coming to the end of our stadium draw as well, and we're looking for support on that. We'll be running we're working with the We Care Food Bank people, along with the supporters club from Manchester City and Liverpool. So a lot of preparations get made, and there was huge disappointment after conceding that late goal last night. But once again, when things are difficult on the pitch, you really need people off the pitch to stand up, and it is not easy. But again, our volunteer base, we've got everything from designers to fundraisers to the people working in the office to people help us out around the ground. They've really stood up this season, and it can be difficult when there's a bit of negativity out there, but it's just been absolutely fantastic support from both the supporters and our volunteers, and I think that always has to be acknowledged. So it comes down to that match. It's going to be like a cup final. So,
and of course, after that, Harps still then have to travel to Drogheda, the last game of the season. UCD's final match is against Shamrock Rovers, who may or may not have the league title wrapped up. And then after all of that, there can be a play-off at a neutral venue against the team challenging to try and get up from the first division. So there could be a lot more football to come. Ian Harkin, away from the actual on-the-pitch activities, we can talk about another pitch, the Donegal Community Stadium project. Fair to say it's gone on for quite a while. There's been a few final hurdles, but from your perspective now, you can see over the horizon there is a finish line there. You can see the end of the tunnel. So just to update people, I mean, essentially, there's the guts of sort of 4 million in funding is pretty much there in place, ring fenced. The county councils come in, the FAIs come in, and Harps have to, through fundraising and loans and whatever else, make up that extra little bit of difference to get them over the final hurdle. And we're talking about a sort of a €6 million project in total.
Yeah, not far off it. Yeah. It's somewhere in around 5.8 at the moment. Yeah. So in terms of where we are with it at the moment, we've submitted everything to the Department of Sport. They've come back with a final list of about 8 points that they want us to address, and some of those are legalities with regards to a charge on the land, for example, and some of those processes, they're a little bit frustrating that they come in so late, but they have to be done, and there is a time issue with those. It's just a process, whatever. So we're waiting. We were hoping to be actually seeding the grass this year, but we're kind of waiting on them to do their process on their side. But all of the points that they have given us, we're addressing those at the moment, and hopefully now in the next number of months we'll be getting the diggers on site. Right.
And the club has this monster draw, I suppose we can call it, coming up this weekend. 20,000 in cash, the top prize. Vitally important that people come out and this last push for ticket sales, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first in many steps that we'll be taking over the next number of years. It's very difficult, I suppose, to start fundraising without knowing that you have the green light from the government to get things going, and without even seeing the diggers on site. So we started this process about a month or so ago with a golf event over in London, which was hosted by Shay Given, and it was a huge success. I suppose it was my first time going out fundraising for anything, I suppose, but going over to London where we weren't really sure. We knew that they have an affinity towards the Gaelic, and going over there with Finn Harps, we were absolutely astounded by how welcoming they were and how helpful. The team over there from Donegal Association, from Tony McFadden and Mark McMonigal, and those guys really supported us. They put on a magnificent event, and Shay himself was a star on the day. Now he got everybody to put their hand in their pocket, and we did really well now in that first event.
So just how much pressure is there sort of on the club to fill that little gap? Because it is dependent on, you need to get this before the other pieces of the jigsaw all come in as well.
There is, yeah. And as a club as well, it's about prioritising this. This stadium is, it's so important because it'll be the catalyst for change. It will allow us to generate improved revenues, and eventually that will manifest itself on the pitch in the future as well. But it has to take priority in the short term so that we get it built. Yeah.
And I suppose until you know what division you're going to be in next season, that will influence things in terms of getting sponsorship as well, and that's a big factor.
It is a big factor. I mean, it's hugely important that that we stay in this division. But I think there's like the Donegal community. What I've seen over in London, and even yesterday, I was invited to the opening of the facility there in Convoy by the Donegal GAA, and I went in there with my Harps jacket on, and I didn't know what reception I would get, but everybody wants us to succeed. Everybody wants us to have that facility in place. And the Donegal community, it doesn't matter whether in London, Dublin, here in Donegal, they all want us. They know that we've been through this for this last 20 years trying to build our facilities.
Yeah.
As Donegal GAA had the same issues as well in Convoy. It will be our new home, and it will be state-of-the-art as well. And it will be fan-focused as well. Some of the comments I was getting yesterday was that people want that entertainment. That, well, first of all, they want to be sheltered, and they want to, it has to be a Friday night experience about being in a venue that has atmosphere, that has the food, that has ease of access and food and drink, and a proper night out.
And if we look at the stands, I mean, the plans have been tweaked slightly, but we're talking about a capacity of just over 6,000, 2 covered seated stands, 2 covered terraces, which at a future date could be converted for seating. But I'm sure there's certainly quite a lot of fans who probably would prefer to stand.
Yes, so behind both goals now, they will be terraces. We are looking at potentially reducing that capacity slightly to get a higher grade rating on our stadium. In order to do that, we have to put some seats into the away end. I mean, if you look at what's happening in Europe at the moment with in Germany, where a lot of the stands are converting back to having standing room behind the goals, that's something that came out in our own research before we started this latest redesign.
And all going well, as things stand now, things can be subject to change. But when do you think Harps could be in that new stadium? What season are we talking about as things stand now?
Yeah, well, we were hoping to be in at the beginning of 2024, but it's looking like it'll be mid-season, somewhere in around June, July.
And just bringing Aidan back in. Aidan, I know we spoke previously about other clubs and the lift that this will give the club. Shamrock Rovers not so long ago were nomads and playing at Tolka Park and in front of hundreds rather than thousands. They've got a bounce. We look down the road. Sligo have obviously upgraded their stadium. They've plans as well in the Brandywell. Probably Dundalk, one of the exceptions to the rule despite their recent success. But even for the whole league, I mean, it helps. There's a real sort of filter down effect as well.
Of course it does. And it's extraordinary to think that the turf was first turned in 2007, and we're still here, which is unfortunate. But if you look at what Tallaght Stadium did for Shamrock Rovers, and you talk to the people there, they said the difference in running the club is night and day. You're offering people good facilities. As Ian said, it gives you that ability to create a match night experience, not just a football match where you've got the families. You can look after your supporters who want the more kind of traditional night out with the standing, with the design of the stadium is built for atmosphere. And again, we've seen this season, Chris, and we'll go back to that Longford game again. The amount of kids that were there. There is a huge need out there for live football, and it's not just about watching football on the television. We can have it right here in our county. So, and then there's the whole community aspect where we're working with organisations like Donegal Down Syndrome, the Food Bank this week. We have kids from teams all over the county come do flag bearers, and you want to have the proper toilets, you want to have the proper catering. We're talking about putting in a play area so families can come and they can put the kids there, go enjoy the match, get some nice food. So it's all really positive. not just for Finn Harps, but for the county and for League of Ireland football. So it's imperative that everybody comes together and really makes it happen, because it's really going to be good for Donegal. And on the footballing side, then obviously it just makes it that bit easier to attract players. There's a lot of talk, long term, can you be a part-time club in the Premier League? I'm not sure you can. And this will give us the platform to bring in those extra kind of revenues on sponsorship and fundraising to make that happen.
Absolutely.
So it's very exciting.
Yeah. And just conscious of the clock here, just Ian, bringing you in one more time. Aidan's touched on it there. You know, let's face it, the facilities at Finn Park haven't changed much since the early years. And, you know, to bring new people to the game, for people to bring maybe kids or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you know, people expect a certain standard of things. Yes, there's a huge amount of money going to be invested, but, you know, unless you're competing and have the facilities, you're against other sports as well, and it's going to increase match day revenue considerably. So that's a factor going forward.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the gates that we were getting back in the 70s, in the 1970s, we entered the league in 1969. Right throughout the 70s, we never were finished below halfway down the table in the 70s, and we were getting regular crowds of 5, 6, 7,000, peaking at 10,000 for the Celtic game in 1983. And that's the potential. Donegal people are sports mad, and they're crying out for a facility, you know, somewhere to go on a Friday night. I've no doubt, like when we do build it, that the crowds will return, and it is so important to get it right. People have expectations because they do travel over to England, and they know what's available over there, and we need to match that on a micro level. Yeah. But it's possible.
And finally, just, you know, it's going to be the Donegal Community Stadium. Primarily, people are going to associate it with Harps, but, you know, hopefully there's going to be maybe underage internationals, and there could be concerts, there could be other sports. I mean, this is going to be an asset for the whole of Donegal and indeed the Northwest.
Absolutely, yeah. It's you know, it can't be just something that's there, that's opened every second Friday. It has to be used right throughout the year and generating revenues right throughout the year. It will be an asset to the whole county, yeah.
And finally, you know, I suppose a lot of people will, you know, until they see the diggers and a bit more concrete going in, you know, that'll give it a major boost in itself. So that's something you can confidently hear today. Think, you know, we're just, months away from that happening?
Never been more confident. Not only just because of where we are in the process, but because of the goodwill that I'm seeing from lots of different people, from the minister, from the FAI, from local councillors. Everybody wants to get this done, our fans as well. So it's I've never been more confident that it will happen, yeah.
Great. Well, listen, gentlemen, there we leave it. Those tickets are on sale from club members. You can buy them online as well. No doubt there'll be a few sold just before kick-off next week also. So Ian Harkin and Aidan Campbell, many thanks for coming into studio. We'll go for a break.